Welcome everyone to Enlightened World Network. This is Divine Relationship Recovery, and I'm Deb Goldberg. And I'm so happy to have my guest here with me tonight is Dr. Nancy Tarr Hart. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you, Deb. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm grateful for you to be here too. We just had a beautiful meditation with you last week, and it was lovely. And so let me tell everyone a little bit about you, so they get to know you a little bit better. Dr. Nancy Tarr Hart has a wide and varied history of personal and professional experience with a career that encompasses working 40 plus years in the worlds of business, education, and theater. An intuitive and mystic, the understanding of her spiritual gifts fully ignited in 1995, and in 1999, she was guided by Spirit Sophia to begin an academic journey that began with working to attain an undergraduate degree. The journey culminated in a PhD in religious studies with a concentration in systematic theology, feminist theory, the divine feminine, and Marian Studies from the University of Wales, Trinity, St. David in Lampeter, Wales. She is the author of the 2-volume series entitled Beyond the Veil, Volumes 1 and 2, Unmasking the Feminine and Unraveling the Mystery of Mary. Dr. Tarr Hart is also a contributing author to Empowering You, Transforming Lives, compiled by Rebecca Hall-Grudier, and A Gateway to an Enlightened World, Collective Life Lessons to Support Planetary Transformation, compiled by Dr. Ruth Anderson. She is currently the chair and assistant professor in the Department of Philosophy at the Notre Dame of Maryland University. And she is an ardent fiber artist who enjoys traveling, reading, writing, gardening, and sharing her home with her cats, Kaylee and Bastet. Thank you so much for bringing forth your beautiful self and your life story. I would really like people to understand a little bit more about your books because they're so intriguing. We were just talking about, I'm looking forward to reading them. So maybe they could get to know you a little bit better.
Well, actually, the books are a distilled down version of my doctoral thesis.
Wow.
So, and the doctoral thesis looked at, it was at first my intention was to just look at the way that the feminine spirit had sort of been usurped, taken over, kind of pushed aside by the masculine word. And so if we look at language, which is really important in scholarship, but also in just the way that we live, all throughout in the wisdom literature of the Hebrew, the Hebrew Bible and in the Hebrew faith, you have feminine Sophia, feminine wisdom, who was with God in the beginning, all of these things. And then all of a sudden, with the New Testament, you have the word, which is, and by the way, Sophia or wisdom, even in Judaism, chokmah or ruah are feminine gendered words. And so Sophia is Greek for wisdom, and that is feminine gendered. All of a sudden you have the logos, which is a masculine gendered word, which means word. So then the word was with God in the beginning. And so and all of a sudden the feminine just sort of leaves the picture. Enter Mary, the mother of Jesus, who doesn't really appear that much, but who in her own right is very, very important when we look at the way she's referred to in the Gospel of Mark. Jesus is referred to as, oh, that's the son of Mary. That's not an idiom that was used in that time period. It was always the son of a father, the son of this. So, I started to think, well, wait a minute, are these things interrelated? And the interconnection is that the feminine's always been there. It's just been put behind a veil.
Mm-hmm.
There's a shadow back there. And what I needed to do was search to find out what that shadow was.
Mm-hmm.
So the first book deals with unmasking the feminine wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second book is trying to unravel the mystery that actually is Mary. Who is she? Who was she? And I look at her from a very human perspective, but also not only is she human, but she is also divine, because she was in spirit, and spirit was in her. So she was fully divine and fully human, and was showing us, she manifested through her son, actually, the new creation,
Mm-hmm.
of which we are all a part.
Mm-hmm.
And he was an exemplar for all of us. That's
Mm-hmm.
what we can attain.
Mm-hmm.
And so the world would not be the same if it had not been for Mary.
Right.
She kind of gets lost in all of that, So different religions look at her differently. And, I did learn a lot, but that's, and I promise they're not dry. They're, I cut out as much of you have to say it this way because it's supposed to be, a scholarly document. And so there's a lot in them. And I think that people will be able to find things that help them. Wisdom, there's a spirituality there that if we all could understand that wisdom, that spirit of God is through and in all of us and in all of creation.
Mm-hmm.
If we could acknowledge that in ourselves and in each other, it would be a totally, that it would be a different place. And that's where I think we're moving to.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. That is beautiful. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Sure.
Because I think people would be interested in hearing what you have found out and what you've written in your books about the divine feminine and Mary. And yes, I truly agree with you that I look at us all as divine and human, that we're no different than Mary or Jesus was. That's who we are. And it is, I've said this before, it is the hardest thing to accept your divinity. It's easier to listen to ego consciousness and to all of that faulty stuff than it is to believe that you are divine, that you're one with God. So, I think that we're moving towards that too, is that there's more of an acceptance of, yes, I am one, and it's the journey of trying to not just intellectually know that, but actually understand and feel it.
Well, and I just said this in the book, so I don't want to, spoiler alert. So if you're going to get them, don't pay that much attention. But there's a process that actually the Eastern Orthodox Church talks about, and I look at it a little differently, but they call it divinization.
Mm-hmm.
And one of their early church fathers talked about human beings as being children and sort of pushing a big boulder up a hill, and that we would make mistakes and that boulder would come back a little bit, and then we would push it up a little further, and that and we talk about I talk a lot about eudaimonia in classes, and I've actually given some lectures on it. It has to do with flourishing. And eudaimonia is flourishing, and it is an activity of our soul as we're moving ourselves toward our end. And our end does not necessarily mean when we die, which is the way that the Western Christian church has interpreted it, that after you die, well, then that's when, everything happens. But what this is saying is that we can learn to be like this while we're here.
Yes. So bringing heaven to earth in that same way of connecting with your divine self and allowing that to lead you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's part of my journey too. I will freely say, and I've talked with others about this, I would sit at the computer and just my fingers would just go. Because and this work was the culmination of many, many lifetimes. I can tell you that. Lifetimes that I got stopped, lifetimes that I got burned, lifetimes that I, who knows what happened to me. But it was safe to let it come out now. And I think that now, because of what's going on now with our the big ascension, the final ascension, so to speak, and I don't know if it's final. I hope it is. I would like to think that it is.
Yeah.
But that this is all tying together. It's like a puzzle. That we have made it into a puzzle because, as the ego, all of that ego has come in, and what couldn't possibly be this simple.
Right. And it is really simple. It's funny because what I have written for the start of this show, which I don't always say it, is we came here forgetting that we are already whole and one with everything. Our greatest accomplishment on earth is remembering this and then embodying it. And so that's what we're talking about is that process of remembering and embodying. So for those of you that are new to watching this show, each week I have a wonderful guest with me, and God gives me a topic and talking points. And today the topic is the I am presence. And so I'm going to read the first talking point for Dr. Nancy and I to talk about. So God says, "Oh, what a joy it is to know that you are never alone nor separate from my presence. Can you feel me within you, growing a much deeper relationship than ever before? I call on you to come closer day after day so you can experience the presence of your true nature." And we were just talking before we got started about how everyone has this relationship, and we're in that relationship because you can't not be, but not everybody is aware that they're in relationship with divine love, right?
Right. I think that we know it when we're babies. And then as we, start to pay more attention to everything around us, and we realize that the world is more than just our little body and maybe our mother and father or our siblings or whoever is there for us. Our ego starts to take over. And we start to become more reliant on our own selves or on the people around us. And I think that there is a separation that occurs. It is a separation of being here in this body and not necessarily being in touch with your soul. And when I was growing up, I saw things, I heard things. I had a lot of activity going on around me all the time. And when I talked about it, I would get punished.
Mm.
I would be told, you have the most vivid imagination. I heard that when I was 50 years old, for heaven's sakes. Although the word still was in there. You still have the most vivid imagination. And I loved the flowers and and nature and all, and that was where I always felt best. That was where I knew that I felt different, and I could always feel this warmth right in the middle of my chest, my heart chakra, fully open. That's where I felt God. I came from a very religious family. I mean, not like, evangelicals, but very steadfastly sang in the choir. Church was our second home, basically. I never felt that way in the church, in that building. If a man get me down at the stream or in the backyard, it was fine. So we start to get, I know I'm not the only child that had those experiences.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so we start to say, oh, well, maybe that's not what is going on. Maybe it is just my imagination. And so the separation occurs. And wouldn't it be lovely if we could have somebody say to us as a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old or even a 10, 15-year-old, that is you being in touch with the divine.
Right.
That's being you, or that's you being with and in spirit right now.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than, what is it with your imagination? Are you making stuff up again? Because each time we hear that, it's separate. It puts another wedge in, I think, and that wedge has continued to grow exponentially with the more people who have been on Earth, and also with the different. I see it with the different generations. I see it when I'm teaching. We have a lot. I'm seeing a lot more students who are either self-proclaimed agnostics or self-proclaimed atheists and say, there's nothing out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're right. There is nothing out there. It's all in here.
Exactly. So I talk to them a lot about transcendence, which is us moving to a place where we realize that we are part of something larger than our own selves.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I say, I don't care how you define it.
Mm-hmm.
You can call it God, you can call it spirit, you can call it community, you can call it whatever you want to. But it's knowing that you are not separate from anything or anyone.
Right. It's nice that you can talk about those things in your class, because not everybody can do that. and everybody experiences. So the first talking point is, can you feel me growing deeper and deeper in relationship with you ever than before? And you're talking about being out in nature is the way that you feel that connection to your heart when you're outside. And for me, it used to be water. Water always makes me feel like the ocean or the beach made me feel more connected and going inside, to now where meditating enough is I feel it all the time. And so we're all going to experience the presence of love in different ways. Mm-hmm. But you are so right, because we are creation, we're consciousness, and everything outside of us that we see is part of consciousness. It is all part of your mind. It's all part of whatever consciousness is, this energy. I look at it, infinite creation. It's imagination, it's creativity. And so everything you see outside of you is part of you. You can't be separate. And you're right, you're talking about how we get indoctrinated into the world from being a small child, from people not understanding or believing what we're saying, and then society and religion all telling you very different things. You get programmed, and so what creates all of the angst inside of us is this belief in separation when there's no truth to it. There can't be any truth to it. Energy is energy. It's one, and you can't separate energy.
And I agree with you. And, and that, unfortunately, in the West, I don't want anyone listening or watching to think that I'm bashing a religion or a church.
No.
But the early Catholic Church fathers, those men, and they were men, who formulated the official church, the universal church. That's what Catholic meant. It was supposed to be for it was universal. That's what everybody was supposed to believe. And they really concentrated, they started to really, they sort of solidified that separation between God and creation with the fall of Adam and Eve from the garden, when they referred to it as a fall. And what they forgot was that the Hebrew Bible shows us two people walking, or two beings walking in a garden with God, with that supreme being. They're sort of shooed out of the garden, but that doesn't mean that God is not still there. There's nothing about a fall. But the early church fathers sort of took that and ran with it. And then because we had the doctrine of original sin, and that's what really separated us. And that Jesus was the only human being. He was fully human, but he was without sin. Fully human and without sin, and fully divine. And that no human being, even Mary, his mother, is not referred to as divine. There's all these little caveats that say she can't be, you cannot refer to her as divine. And so it's sort of that permeated Western culture. And so I think regardless of our religious background, we all kind of hear that creation is bad. Creation is, or it's not necessary, or if it's not bad, creation is lesser than. I teach environmental ethics, and when we look at things like, people believing that humans are here to lord over creation. The creation is here for us to do, it's here for our pleasure. And I'm not sure how we can continue. We can't continue to justify that. But the other part of that is that it does have to do with energy. When one of us crosses to the other side, our body is most often put into the earth. And what does it do? It regenerates and mingles, and maybe becomes a tree or becomes something else. The energy does not die. We know scientifically, energy does not die. We didn't know that 2,000 years ago. So I can't fault people that 2,000 years ago didn't understand that. Most of us still today don't understand it.
Sure.
But where does that energy come from? And where do those connections come from? And they come from that something larger than our own selves, but they're also coming from us because we are part of that something larger.
Mm-hmm.
That was really redundant, and I apologize. But
Okay.
I'm starting to go into another space in my head here, and I need to really ground. I'm sort of moving into an altered space, I think.
Okay. No, that's okay. Yes, it is a hard concept for people to understand that the only thing that exists is energy, and that energy cannot be separated. It doesn't die. It doesn't change. And within our experience here, it looks like it does all of those things, but God never changes. God is always the same. And getting in relationship, and that's what God wants, is wants this deep relationship with you, so you can understand who you are from God and not from literature. Literature is great, but having the experience of divine love, it cannot be replaced by anything else, other than that experience. So you were talking about the background of how these things kind of got separated, but so the next talking point is God saying, don't be afraid. I am only unconditional love wanting to envelop you so you feel safe and remember your true home and state of being. It is you that needs to remember the delicious freedom and power you have as conscious creation.
Mm-hmm. And we do forget. We are co-creators.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the first time I heard that phrase, I was, gosh, now let me take it back. The first time I heard it, I think, was probably in about 1995. So I can't do math right now. I was in my 40s.
Mm-hmm.
I never knew that. I mean, yeah, I created a character when I was on stage, or I created, a cross stitch or something like that. But to think that I was actually creating more than that, creating my own life, creating my own circumstances, whether I realized it or not. And it's really interesting because I had an old coworker. Now, he's not old. Well, actually he is, but a coworker, and I worked with him back in the 80s, and he said he just could not get over what I had done, like in the past 20, maybe 30 years. He said, because everything you've done, and starting in 1995, was a conscious choice. He said, what you've done, I said, wait a minute. I said, I heard somebody say you need to go to college.
Me too. I had
Yep.
the same thing.
Exactly. And why am I going? PhD. Really? I had to look it up. Really? What am I going to do with that? Don't worry. Just do it. Okay? I said, he said, but you did it. He said, you made the choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I guess you're right. I didn't have to pay attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we hear that, but we're afraid.
Mm-hmm.
Because, who knows, and I go back a lot to what stuff I go through in my classes, but sometimes we talk about predestination, or do you believe that things are predestined, that things are going to happen whether or not we take a straight line to get there or we zigzag all around.
Mm-hmm.
And my students are like, nothing's predestined. I said, okay. I said, well, we know that we're born and we know that we're going to die.
Mm-hmm.
So there's starting point and ending point.
Mm-hmm.
I said, but I personally believe, I said, you don't have to, that we do have certain things that we have signed up for before we came in. I would not be sitting here talking to you if I had not gone for, if I had not gotten my PhD, written my doctorate, decided to make it into books, actually called Dr. Ruth Anderson, and made that connection. Wouldn't have happened.
Right.
But I believe it was supposed to happen. And so all those steps needed to be. Now, if I had short-circuited, would it have happened anyway? It may have.
I believe so.
It just would have taken a different, So, but we don't know. We've lost track of how to do that.
What you're saying is so important. We are doing a lot of creating, but we are not always conscious that we're creating. And I believe that from my own experience with God teaching me that our life's already done. It's already happened. It was written. And I think that's what Jesus meant when he said it's done. It's already done. And so our life's already been written. And what we're doing is following a script, but we don't realize we're following a script. And then that's why everything looks so serendipitous, that why does everything line up? And it's because the script has already been prepared, and on some level what's going to happen, but you're not conscious of that. And so part of our journey here, and that's what he's saying, don't be afraid. I'm just unconditional love wanting to envelop you and help you keep remembering that you are the same as me, that you are divine love, that you are light. And that is your state of being. You're here having this experience, but it does not change your wholeness of who you are. And so the conscious creating I look at as the script's already been written. And when you really get in alignment with your relationship with divine love, with God, whatever you call that, then you're actually doing this together. You're aware that you're doing this together. So you're being led, you're being guided, you're being, like you said, go to college. You heard go to college. I did too. And that was in 1991. Where I heard, it was a dream, and it was so profound. I got up the next day and enrolled in Penn State, because that's where I lived, is right there. And everybody thought I was crazy. How do you wake up in the morning and know what you want to do? I'm like, it was all laid out. It was easy. And when God's talking to you, when you're being spoken to. And so you are right. You can choose to go along with what you're hearing or not choose to go along with it. But everything is built into the story. Everything, because it is already known what you're going to do. And it is God expressing itself through you, because you are just one with that spirit. You're not doing this by yourself. I like to look at it as, in my meditations, I have God and Jesus sitting, and I see them in image. So even though I know they're just energy and that they're not gendered, they're sitting in a cloud, and they keep like, come on, Deb, come on up to the top. Let's watch from up here what you're doing down there.
Okay.
So I'm always sitting up there with them, watching myself unfold, watching how I do things, what my reactions are to the experiences that I'm having. And so a lot of your conscious creating is coming from your own perception and your reaction to what you see in front of you, because you're creating either more or less of that, more or something else, by the way that you perceive it.
And your judgment of it.
And your judgment of it, yes, which is everything. So, what he's saying here is that it gives you so much freedom and power to understand that you are just consciousness. You're a creation in motion, and that you have protection, you're eternal, you are loved, you are cherished, you are honored. Everything that you're searching for is already there, that you are it. And then, but you go along this life journey forgetting, totally forgetting.
And you know, I'm sitting here right now talking to you, and my heart chakra is really wide open, and you know, I'm thinking of all the lovely things that have been occurring, and I know that that could turn on a dime
Mm-hmm.
if I get an email that upsets me, or you know, if I watch the news or something like that. I happened to, and this is just, you know, just one of those things. It's a remembrance. This morning I was, you know, working really hard, and I thought, okay, I'm starting to get really anxious and everything, and I need, you know, I'm going to be talking this afternoon. I'm going to be doing this TV show, or I don't know, is it a TV show, computer show, whatever it is, and I need to not be anxietous. I need to be in a good place. And the cats were going nuts at this living room window. And I was like, what are you doing? So I walked over, and I had the window open because it was a little bit cooler. And I said, okay, it's getting really warm. I'm shutting this. And just as I was getting, you know, I got the window down about 2 inches. And all of a sudden, something zipped by and just hovered. It was a hummingbird.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And he came back, and he just like hovered right in front of me. And he came right up to the screen, backed up. He was like doing a little dance.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went over to the honeysuckle bush, and then a second one came. And then they both came over, and they were doing a dance. And I thought, okay, this is really exceptional.
Mm-hmm.
And it's beautiful. And it's a reminder that I needed to lighten up.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed to know that it's okay to just kind of stand there and not do anything for right now, except be.
Mm-hmm. What an amazing witnessing of creation talking to you.
Yeah.
Everything, every single thing is lined up for you to keep showing up for you, to say, we're here. We're here. Look how beautiful we're here.
Exactly.
And I can change, and I'm going to do something that takes your mind back to understanding how magnificent this world is, and what a miracle it is that God has created this magnificent experience for you to keep witnessing love over and over and over again. And we miss that when we're not awake. We miss those when we are not awake. But you asked, something inside of you said, go to the window. You might have thought it was because it was too hot or there was noise there. But something inside of you said, go to the window because I'm going to show you something amazing.
And I think we need to be open to recognizing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that actually is one of my jobs here, is to help people to recognize or to understand that it's okay to recognize.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a lot of students who just stop in my office and say, may I talk to you for a few minutes? And they start talking about their spiritual experiences, or you know, I've been started to meditate, or I've done that. And I'm like, yeah, that's part of, you know, why I'm here. I'm raising that awareness,
Mm-hmm.
helping them to say, oh yeah, synchronicity, or oh yes, it's this. And I pardon me, I think that is certainly part of why I was asked to be here at this time.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. We all have a purpose. We all have a purpose and we'll all be brought to it. We just don't understand how it unfolds.
And sometimes we don't understand what it is.
No, you don't understand. It's really not understanding. I was writing about this today, is not understanding what this incarnation is about or this dream. You really don't. It's like learning, and that's why how you keep unfolding, you keep being taught divine truth of who you are and what this world is. And the more that you go along in your unfolding, and actually I look at it as we're not going someplace new, we're going back to who we were. You're just remembering, you're just being shown who you are when you first got started that you forgot. So you're not learning anything new, you're just remembering, oh, that's right, this is who I am. And so you start to see your divinity even more and more as you go along, as you unfold. But this process, there's no handbook that says, when you arrive on Earth,
Exactly.
this is the way it works. And because you're here to have your own awakening experience. And it's not supposed to be like that, because I used to get mad at first when I first woke up. I was like, why didn't anybody tell me about the ego? And why didn't anybody tell me about this? But it really takes away from the amazingness of when you do wake up and you realize that you are one with everything and that there is no separation. And so this leads into the next talking point. The depths of our love, meaning God speaking to you, the depths of our love is like nothing you have experienced before. And your journey is to go deeper and deeper into the love so you can actualize yourself, meaning really coming to terms with your divine identity. Since your journey is about remembering and coming home to yourself, the I am presence. You are the I am presence. You are coming home to yourself. So the more you go deeper into this awakening with God, you realize you're meeting yourself. You are meeting your holy self. And that the journey is about you having your own story. And your story has all these different chapters in it. It has pre-awakening chapters and after awakening chapters, and that you keep getting drawn in more and more the more that you want to stay present and stay committed to saying, I know that there's something more than meets the eye here, and I want to know what it is. I want to feel that and know that. And he's right. The depth of love is like nothing I've ever experienced here on this earth. It's profound. It's overwhelming. It makes me cry. It's blissful. It is joy. It is, and then you realize that this is who you are. This is the love that lives inside of you. It is the source of your identity that got covered up and got hijacked.
Somebody said to me once that when we come in, our memory banks are just like erased. So that we can experience, that we come in here to experience what we can't experience when we are in spirit form.
Mm-hmm.
But I need, and this is exactly what you're saying. But what it is that I think that what we're doing is we are melding our experience with who we were out here. And so that's where we are, that's where we are becoming. Mm-hmm. And I say where because I don't think it's who. I think it's where we are going to be, into this divine and human conflation type of a thing. Mm-hmm. We forget that we are souls in a body. But sometimes we forget that we are bodies with souls.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to find that balance. And I think that once we fully integrate, that's our key. That's our key. And that's when we will understand all of the profoundness and fully get it. But yeah, I guess we're sort of like androids or something that somebody said, erase, because it is waking up, it is remembering,
Mm-hmm.
and it's having these remembrances of times and places. And of course, Einstein said, and this makes my head hurt when I think about it, but Einstein said that everything is happening at the same time, past, present, future, all these different worlds, everything is happening all at once. There is no separation.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that for 5 minutes. You'll need Advils and a vodka tonic or something.
Well, I'm going to show you something, Nancy, because it's funny. Jesus actually drew me a diagram.
Okay.
You should like this. This is the diagram.
Okay.
And he says to me, you see this point in the middle? That's all that exists. Is that one point. That one point is the only existence of everything. And it is, he said, everything else comes from that. But there is nothing happening anywhere else. There is no time, as you say, there's no time or space. And it is, we're having a dream. We're having this beautiful dream, or it can be a scary nightmare. I've experienced both sides of that.
Right.
And that this point never changes. And that point is what we call God, is divine love, is consciousness. It is beautiful. It is who you are. It is your divine nature. It is a state of being. It's not a feeling. And so getting to that point of, and I've even been told there is no integration, because I would say, help me integrate mind, body, soul, God. Help me integrate this that you're teaching me. And he said, there's nothing to integrate. You are whole. You are holy. You're divine. He said, you just need to believe it. You just need to accept it. And the whole journey is really this dichotomy that goes on of knowing that you're hearing truth, and a part of you just can't wrap your head around it, like you're talking about Einstein, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't allow you to just take that in and I just believe it.
And I think that part of that is because of the vehicle or the vessel that we are in. We are finite.
Mm-hmm.
We are in a dualistic, paradoxical creation here. Everything's dualities.
Mm-hmm.
Although not really, but it is.
Well, that's what we're experiencing, is duality.
And we're starting to see that go away with, with all of the, young people who are being very honest about their lack of gender. What's the word I want?
Limitations, yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. That they are not this way or that way, or that they may be in this body, but they feel like they belong in that body.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a blurring
mm-hmm.
of these boundaries that humans have established because we are in these finite vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
And so the source, the divine source, I think does have a sense of humor.
Oh my God, so funny.
To be like, yeah, you are all these things, but meanwhile, I've put you in a place where, guess what? It's going to be light or it's going to be dark. It's going to be this or it's going to be that. And so we need to be able to see beyond all of that,
Mm-hmm.
while still honoring the fact that that is existing.
Mm-hmm. As you
That
said
makes sense.
beautifully, it is going beyond the veil, right?
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
going beyond the veil. It is going beyond, okay, and I think that's what's happening in our world right now. The duality, the craziness is so apparent that you can start to see that, do I want to be part of the circus, or do I want to stay where God asks me to stay and understand truth through that lens and not through the earth lens? And that is, I think, something we're all experiencing as part of this ascension process of,
Yes.
and what it is really owning more of your divinity and understanding that your experience here is becoming more clear to you. There's much more clarity going on.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that you spend time in this relationship with whoever you feel God is, or divine love, being, I call it being spiritually reparented. I had to have everything broken down, all the programming broken down inside of me, so that I could be rebuilt with divine understanding.
Okay.
Which is knowingness to me. I call that your knowingness, that you're being taught divine truth versus earthly truth. And so all the healing that needed to be done from the experience that I've had here, all of that was done within this relationship with God and Jesus. And it is so profound when you understand you have a best friend living inside of yourself, and it's really you.
Mm-hmm.
And learning that you are a whole self, and that you can show up as your whole self. It is really important that you stop hiding parts of yourself, because that's what keeps seeping out for everyone. Is the more you keep pushing down things that upset you, or anything else, that it comes up in these really volatile ways, rather than just accepting that these parts are within you, these aspects, these feelings, these thoughts, beliefs.
Well, and two things. One is that we all have what thousands of writers for millennia have referred to as dark nights of the soul. We're all going to have those. If we've not had them, I don't know one person who hasn't had them.
Mm-hmm.
But they still could happen. And certainly these past few months, a lot of people who are very spiritual have been having difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing is that it's okay to ask for help.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely.
Whether you're asking angels or God or guides or Divine Mother or, Mary Magdalene, Mary of Nazareth, ancestors,
Mm-hmm.
they're all there.
Mm-hmm.
I woke up in the middle of the night last night, and I don't know what woke me. And I suddenly felt very vulnerable. And I thought, okay, I don't normally feel like this in the middle of the night. Was there something I needed to be aware of? Was there something? So I have this group of, I call them my ascended animal masters.
Mm-hmm.
And they are all animals who have either lived with me or I've been associated with. And it's a troop of 4 dogs and 2 cats. And the 2 cats, the one turns into a huge white panther. I mean, huge. And the other one is a black panther. And I just said, okay, guys, I really need I need extra protection around the house right now. I don't know what's going on, but I need you to just be there and to allow yourselves to be shown. in like 2 seconds, I felt the shift in the energy. And I don't know, but I saw each one of them like canvassing and going around. And I heard one of them say to me, "It's okay, you can go to sleep now. We've got it." I
Mhm.
said, "Thank you." And I was back asleep and I slept through until, 6 o'clock this morning. And I was like, "Thank you. Thank you. I love you." And I heard, "We love you too. We're here. Just ask."
Mhm. Always so beautiful.
And we forget that we can ask. It's okay,
Mhm.
because that's part of how we let go of those things that are holding us back.
Most definitely. There is always hope for you. God shows up in whatever form that you'll accept. God shows up. Divine love is showing up any way that you will connect with it. And it surrounds you.
Divine love can be the person in the grocery store that smiles and, well, you can't see it with the mask on, but who smiles and says, "I really hope you have a good day."
Yes, it's
Or, "I
all
like
God.
the way your hair looks,
And it's all you. It's all creation. It is all you. It is oneness of love. Let's just talk about this last one. It's really short, the last talking point. You will understand so much more about your life as you allow yourself to go deeper into this holy communion of mutual love and adoration. Truly, the oneness of this union of self, the I am presence. It is a holy communion of mutual love and adoration between you and divine love. It is amazing. It is and then you keep going deeper and deeper and you realize that it is just all one, that it is a union of yourself into its divine nature, which is the I am presence. It's profound. And to understand that and to experience it is it is the most amazing thing that I've ever accounted. And yet I can't stay there all the time.
Right.
That it is moments of that. And as I go along and I keep practicing being in divine presence, which is really being in your own presence, it makes it longer periods of time that you can experience that. But it is not something that you can maintain.
Do you think,
24/7.
though, that the experience is, and this is not intended to devalue it, it's just the only example I can think of. It's sort of like getting a new car.
Mm-hmm.
That when we first get the car, we smell that new car smell. Everything is so exciting about it, and it's just really wonderful, and we're really enveloped in it. We're just so aware. As the months go on, we just get into it and go,
Mm-hmm.
because it's part of our lives and part of who we are,
Mm-hmm.
because we have melded it. We no longer no longer need that, um, that that push, that extra. This is what it is. It just, because what happens is that it just becomes who we are.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so and you may once in a while get one of those. Maybe you're having a bad day, so you go into a meditation, or you go to the window and you see hummingbirds, and it's like, oh, okay, I needed that right now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, it's you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you become, it's like it's your knowingness of who you are. And that's how you walk out in life, knowing who you are and knowing the experience of yourself. But yes, the moments of smelling the fresh. That usually means that you were up here and you had to come down for something, something brought you back down into earth grounded, that got you grounded again, and that you come back up and you smell it again. You smell the fresh interior of the new car again, and it's, oh, that's right, I remember. I could take that with me more again, and take it with me again, and take it with me again until it is you.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, I guess that where I'm headed with this is I think we're going the same place, but I think that we get to the point where we don't need that. We can have it if we want it.
Mm-hmm.
We can access that if we want it. But if we are in that right relationship,
Mm-hmm.
if we are truly in and of the divine,
Mm-hmm.
then it's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm. It is the way it is. It is the way it is. However, every single day, I am making sure that I am in that right space of presence and asking, what is it that I need to know for that day?
Okay. Yeah.
And it's always the same thing. It's always just saying, I just want you to be happy, because happy shifts everything in your world. The state of being in happiness and joy is, it's like, it is gratitude for your oneness with God, as God. And so when you can stay in that state, and that's why I'm told this every day, just be happy, just be happy, just be happy, because it shifts your whole reality. And for a lot of people, and I know that I've had this over the years of developing my own practice of spirituality, is that it's not always easy to stay happy all day long.
Yeah.
And it's not really expected, I think, that you be happy 24/7. It's just a reminder that go back to happiness, go back to remembering who you are, go back and remember the oneness of love. And when you do that, it shifts everything. It shifts your reality, it shifts your perception of reality, and it brings more joy into your life.
And and that's, it's interesting because I mentioned this word earlier, eudaimonia. Aristotle talked about it, and it for years was translated as happiness.
Interesting.
And they've realized that flourishing is the better definition for it, translation for it. Do we need to be, because what is happiness? Is it a feeling? Is it an emotion? And so to say that, okay, I'm going to be happy today. Well, you may not be able to be happy all day. What if somebody hits your car?
Right. Mm-hmm.
You're not going to be happy for a few minutes.
Right.
I watched as a 92-year-old woman drove into my car a couple of weeks ago as I was leaving a test that I was having. And I was like, seriously, she just drove into my car. I got out of the car with my little mask on. It was 100 degrees outside. She was 92 years old. She was from Scotland. I have a sneaking suspicion she was not supposed to be driving. And I just looked at my car. There was some damage, not enough to be worried about it. And her eyes were filled with tears. And she said, I guess you're going to need my insurance. And I said, you know what? I don't care. Go home. Enjoy having a good life as long as you don't need it for your car. She said, I don't report things like, I was like, oh yeah, I bet you don't. Because you probably, but as I left, I was disgruntled. But then when I left, I thought, you know what? I feel better for having done that.
Mm-hmm.
So it shifted me. It wasn't necessarily being happy,
Mm-hmm.
but it moved me to, I could have been grumbling, or as my mother's favorite word was disgruntled.
Mm-hmm.
I could have been disgruntled all day. I didn't allow it to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's how we perceive things and what we choose, how we choose to act and react.
Right. I totally agree. And that's a great example. So before I was saying show up as your whole self. You show up as exactly how you're feeling in every moment. But you always have the ability to shift back to happy and remember truth of who you are.
Yeah.
And the better you get at remembering that, the quicker you shift back into, and it's really joy. And joy is just a peaceful stillness in your heart. It's not yippee skippy, I'm running all over the house. It is just a peaceful stillness of contentedness.
Do you think it's gratitude as well?
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. It is it is gratitude for knowing and being what you know, who you are, of where you come from, what you're made of. Yeah. What a beautiful show, Nancy.
This was lovely. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. It was great. I would really like it for you to tell people how to get in touch with you.
Oh my. So people can get in touch with me via Facebook. I'm on there as Nancy Tarr Hart. I have a website which is walkinginwisdom.life.
Mm-hmm.
And there's actually there's two emails. One is ntarrhart@gmail.com, and the other I don't use that often, but I think it's tarheart@gmail.com.
Okay. But if they go to your website, they'd be able to.
There's a little form there that. Yeah.
Okay, good. That's awesome. Thank you for bringing your divine love and light here to share with us.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. All your beautiful wisdom.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we are getting ready to say goodbye now. Saturday, I will be teaching a masterclass through enlightenedworld.online, and it will be on how to master your internal world and heal your heart. And so if you'd like to join me, that's at 2:00 p.m. and you can sign up and register at enlightenedworld.online. And we're going to say goodbye for now, knowing that we are one love, protected and held in divine order by our Creator. Go out this day in this awareness and allow God's peace and joy to occupy every thought. Lead with your heart and welcome everyone home, for all are loved. God bless you and have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.